Hey guys, what's going on? RJ from Game News USA here, and today we're going to go over the top 10 NES games of all time. Thank you all for watching the video, and without further ado, let's get into it. So, number 10 on my list is Ninja Gaiden. It's super hard, it's super difficult, it's the old school Ninja Gaiden. It may be not the easiest game to play, but, you know, it's definitely an iconic classic, and I had a hard time picking between this game and Contra. Ultimately, I went with Ninjas, because, you know. Number 9 on the list, Kid Icarus. This game was so underrated back in the day. It was slept on. Thankfully, they brought it back in the 3DS, but Kid Icarus was really good with its vertical levels and its varied enemy types, and its ending level is iconic to me. I thought the game was very well made, and it's a shame we haven't got more Kid Icarus games very much in the last 30-some years. Number 8, Punch-Out! I mean, it's very unique. You're doing boxing, you're fighting different enemies with different styles as you go through. Almost like every level is a boss fight. And it is very difficult to beat the final boxer in that game. And so, I have to say, Punch-Out's number 8 on the list. Also a franchise we need more of. Number 7 is Metroid. Yeah, that's a big-time franchise for Nintendo, and it's really started on the NES. It was very different in the sense that you had to go explore, and you had to go figure out what you're doing, and it really helped spawn a genre along with Castlevania, which, number 6 on my list is Castlevania 3. When you're talking about the 3 Castlevanias and which Castlevania was the best, 1 set up the baseline for things, 2 was the sequel that was kind of weird, and 3 perfected it. A very common theme you'll notice with Nintendo games that have trilogies on the NES. The first game set the baseline, the second game went off the rails, and the third game figured it out and made it better. And so the same thing here with Castlevania 3. Very much enjoyed the game. In fact, I often wonder, is it my favorite Castlevania game of all time in general? It's at least top 3 for me, along with Super Castlevania and Symphony of the Night. So, Castlevania 3, big props. It's the one I would suggest if you're going to play a Castlevania on the NES. Number 5 is Mega Man 2. I love Mega Man. You could have picked almost any of them, but Mega Man 2 was such a jump up from Mega Man 1. I believe there's 9 levels in this one, and some of the most iconic enemies and level design in the series was in Mega Man 2. Mega Man 2, Mega Man 3, it was kind of a close call. Ultimately, I'm going with Mega Man 2 here. Number 4, Kirby's Adventure. Now, this game may not be as high up on some of y'all's list. However, this game is actually pretty playable and accessible today. It's not quite as hard as other NES games. That being said, it still has a good amount of challenge in there. And I love the level design. Kirby was able to, you know, gulp enemies, copy abilities, fight bosses. It felt really epic. It's actually still to this day one of my favorite Kirby games. Probably top 3 or top 5. But I really enjoy Kirby's Adventure. It's still a game I will go back and play from time to time. Number 3 on my list, the original Legend of Zelda. Of course, you cannot talk about the NES without talking about the Legend of Zelda. It wasn't linear. It allowed you to explore. You had to explore. You could go almost in any direction. You try to figure stuff out. And it was very new. It was like a big adventure as a kid going through on Legend of Zelda, which at times could be frustrating when you die. But then you realize when you come back, you could just go in a different direction. And a lot of the newer Zeldas we see now come off the heels of the original Legend of Zelda, giving you the freedom to explore. And honestly, discovering what was in that world was definitely one of my fondest gaming memories. Even though I think there's been better Zelda since. The ability to save the game, the gold cartridge. There were things in the series here that have changed gaming forever. And so I am forever indebted to Legend of Zelda for that. Number 2 on my list. I wasn't going to do multiple of the same franchise. However, number 2 and number 1, spoiler alert, they're both going to be Mario games. But number 2 is the original Super Mario Bros. It is probably the most important video game of all time. It probably single-handedly stopped the video game crash of the early to mid-'80s in the United States. It brought gaming back to a wider audience. And what it was is 2D platforming was basically born here with this Super Mario Bros. Game. You had Bowser, you had like 32 levels, you had secret exits, and it was kind of transitioning from the arcades. You still had a high score you can get, and you still had lives, and it was very much felt like an arcade experience, but in a home console. And without Super Mario Bros., I don't know if I'd be here talking about video games. And that brings me to number 1 on my list. As you probably heard this remix music that's playing the whole time. Number 1 has got to be Super Mario Bros. 3. No doubt, in my opinion, the best Nintendo Entertainment System game of all time. You had the raccoon power, you had the frog suit, you have different suits, you had the fire flower, you had 7 or 8 different worlds, and you had the Koopalings and a different boss fight at the end of each world. You had an overworld. You had a battle mode if you went 2-player. This game had iconic music, iconic bosses. It literally almost was like wizardry to see this game being able to run on the NES. The fact that this game was on the same system as the original Super Mario Bros. Shows what kind of leap the series took. And I would say in general, Super Mario Bros. 3 is probably still in my top 3 of 2D Mario platformers of all time. I could pick it up and play it right now and be fully satisfied. Used to play the Game Boy Advance version as well on the bus coming home from school. I enjoyed that. And so, Super Mario Bros. 3 takes the top spot today. So anyway, guys, why don't you tell me in your comments below what the NES meant to you. Don't forget to like the video, share this out there, and hit the subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, and have a good day, everyone.